Let's go to the next question that we have received that came in via voicemail. So let's take a listen.
In Colossians 2, 16 and 17 says, don't let anyone tell you that you have to go through certain rituals, certain foods, and keep feasts or observe extra Sabbath. What does this verse explain?
Okay, so it says, it's talking about Colossians chapter 2, and it's discussing feasts and the Sabbath and other events. Dr. Michael Yonker, what does the Bible say?
Well, let's turn to the verse very quickly and read it. That's Colossians 2,
Yes.
verses 16 and usually 17 is read with it. Therefore, no one is to act as your judge in regard to food or drink, or in respect to a festival or a new moon or a Sabbath day. These things are a mere shadow of what is to come, but the substance belongs to Christ. This verse is a very complicated one, and we're going to share some different thoughts on it because we've discussed this passage previously. It's one that raises a lot of questions with people. One thing I want to point out here is some translations do have at the end of verse 16 the Sabbath day in the singular, but it really does look like it's in the plural, so it's Sabbaths. And so it looks like there's a sequence of festivals, new moons, and Sabbaths, some sort of package there.
First, I would like to comment on new moon celebration, because some people just wonder, should we also continue to celebrate new moon festival? So what is that? And so just in brief, the calendar of Israel people, it was like lunar solar. So it was based on the rotation of the moon around the earth, and at the same time on the rotation of the earth around the sun. So they have like this, both perspectives. And can you imagine if people cannot read, because some of them did not read, and if they didn't have written calendars, how to know when the month starts? So for that, God established new moon calendar. So first day of the month was new moon festival. So anytime when you have first new moon festival, this means this is the first day of month. And so the calendar, so it was like, the calendar was set in such a way that all other festivals, they need to count from this new moon. For example, Passover was on the 14th day of the first moon, of the new moon of the first month. Then unleavened bread festival on the 15th day. So they counted. We had this festival, so 14th day Passover, 15th day unleavened bread, and so on. And all other, Feast of Tabernacle, for example, on the 15th day of the 7th month, and all other festivals and big celebrations and holidays, they counted based on that. So right now, how many calendars do you have? Do you need new moon festival?
No.
Or you can just go and look and know what kind of day of the month it is. So this probably answers, should we celebrate
new moons and
new
festivals?
moon, festivals.
Now, if I may ask also, because it's talking about do not let anyone judge you. So is it probable, looking at the context, we obviously can't read the entire chapter. Is it possible that the concern was about maybe someone judging someone by not doing something correctly? Was that a concern?
Sure. It is actually important to go back to the first part of the verse. Sometimes we're just look at the festivals, new moons, and Sabbaths. But it begins with don't judge concerning food and drink. Now, the interesting thing about the Apostle Paul and his teachings is that sometimes he did do some judging and or admonish us to do a little self-judging. And it's important to keep some of those things in mind, because is it saying that we can eat anything, drink anything, don't let anyone judge me? Is that actually what Paul is recommending in his other advice throughout the New Testament? Let's actually look and see if he actually does provide some other guidelines on judging and what we should eat. If you actually go back to Acts, the book of Acts, chapter 15, and let's look at verse 29. Acts 15:29. Let me find it here also. it's important that to keep in mind that they had received questions relating to Jewish customs and practices previously. And so Paul is establishing a pattern of how he responds to the Jewish question. And you will actually see in Acts 15:29 that in the whole chapter of Acts 15 deals with this question, and it deals with circumcision. And in that instance, just mentioning another one, he actually says, well, that's a Jewish custom that actually can be done away with. It was instituted with the beginning of the Jewish people, and therefore, actually with the father of Abraham. And so it's instituted there with the Jewish people, the father of the faithful, and then it comes to a conclusion with the end of the Jewish era. However, there are other elements that are incorporated into the Jewish customs and laws, Leviticus and so forth, that seem to extend both before the Jews and also after. And Acts 15:29 highlights one of these things. So let's look at that. There it reads that you should abstain from things sacrificed to idols, and from blood, and from things strangled, and from fornication. If you keep yourself free from such things, you do well. Now, we're not going to talk about all of those components, although we will come back to the idols in just a moment. But it says, keep yourself free from blood. The question had been, should they eat meat with blood in it? And his answer actually is no. Now, it's interesting that not eating blood was also a part of the Jewish regulations, the diet laws. You can read about them back in Leviticus and Deuteronomy. It talks about what is clean and unclean and so on and so forth. But one of the stipulations there was that we not eat blood.
Yes.
Now, it's interesting to know that modern science confirms this advice. If you actually read what nutritionists would say about eating blood, I know that sounds kind of gross, but in some ancient cultures they actually would do these things. But blood actually is very unhealthy. As humans, our bodies are not adapted to handle. It's very rich in iron, and you can get an iron overdose and kill yourself by consuming a lot of blood. So if you actually had a lot of blood, that would not be healthy. The good news is, for those of you that do eat some meat, is that usually most of the blood has been removed, although not always, and that's why there is some meat that you should avoid. But the point is that there's a scientific principle there that is still at play, that is true.
Now, just quickly, because we just have a few more minutes left to wrap up the show. So we also don't want to say, by what you were just explaining, how Paul talks about other things that he does say we shouldn't do, is that this verse is not specifically talking about do whatever you want to do.
Exactly.
But there is a context about perhaps not judging others for not doing the things the way we do them.
Right.
So I think that's a perfect message to be able to leave, because there was a lot of explanation about festivals and things. And it's like, at the end of the day, it's important to know that Paul spoke about these things and restricted certain things. So thank you so much for that in-depth analysis.